jornada de esta reunión técnica sobre construcción. Quisiéramos comentarles que hemos hecho una pequeña modificación en la agenda para el día de hoy. En la sesión 3 continuamos con las listas y las especificaciones del cuestionario sobre construcción y obras civiles. Luego veremos todo lo que tiene que ver con la validación intra e intereconomías y algunos ejemplos. Tendremos una sesión de preguntas y respuestas. Hemos tomado las preguntas que nos hicieron y los comentarios ayer en el chat y queremos darle las respuestas hoy, como asimismo todas aquellas preguntas y respuestas que surjan hoy día. También les pedimos que las pongan en el chat o pidan la palabra levantando la mano, ¿ya? En la sesión correspondiente de las 11:20. Y en la sesión 4 hemos dejado los resultados principales, los aspectos principales de la ronda 2017 en América Latina, para poder sacar estas lecciones aprendidas y tener un mejor resultado en este ciclo 2021. Y vamos a finalizar con la sesión 5 de conclusiones y próximos pasos. Y luego de esto les vamos a pedir que prendan sus cámaras. Evidentemente en este momento no lo pueden hacer, pero ahí van a poder estar, van a estar habilitados para hacerlo, para poder hacer una foto grupal de todos los participantes del taller. Así es que sin más, I'm going to give the floor to our colleague Aaron Wright, who started yesterday with the item list and specifications, and now he's going to continue with this presentation. So the floor is yours. Aaron, thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly share my screen with you all. Just bear with me one second. Excellent. So hopefully everyone can see the plasterboard screen, which I've now got up. Can someone confirm that, please?
Yes, we can see it.
Yes, yes.
Great. Thank you. So I recall, I think we got to plasterboard yesterday. This is the final item we got to. So I'll pick up from where we left off. So we're a good way through the materials. I think this is about the 24th item of around 36. So this is, as we can see, it's a plasterboard. The unit of measurement which we require this to be priced in is 1 square meter, and the minimum order of this, which we require from you to get priced, is 28 meters squared. So again, if you get that minimum order of 28 meters squared, divide it by 28 meters squared, and then you can work out the price per square meter. Typically, these plasterboards come in boards which are of 1.2 meter by 2.4 meter, and therefore, when that is considered, 28 meters squared actually equates to 10 boards. So if you did 10 times the 1.2 times 2.4, you'll get your 28. The type of plasterboard which we require pricing is paper faced, so you can see the paper face on either sides with a tapered edge, and the thickness of it's 12.5 millimeter thick, and the shape is a standard sheet. So I mean, as I say, the typical standard sheet would come in the dimensions of 1.2 by 2.4. Not saying that's necessarily applicable to every single country throughout the world. There might be more appropriate dimensions, obviously, for each and every country. And we've got some notes in here which explain effectively how you can substitute your dimensions to arrive at how many sheets you need to achieve that minimum order quantity of 28 meters squared. So that supplementary information, i.e. the notes, that should help you arrive at that calculation. So on to the next item, we have a hand wash basin. The unit of measure is 1 piece, also referred to maybe as 1 number. So we just want a single wash basin. It's a hand wash basin, and the material of which it is made is white vitreous china. The material is vitreous china, and the color is obviously white. So we ask that you try your best to price a hand wash basin of those materials. It's steamed of an average quality, and the dimensions for the hand wash basin are, it is 160 millimeters deep, 500 millimeters long, and 450 millimeters wide. The actual weight typically associated with a wash basin of white vitreous china and of these dimensions is around the 20 kilogram mark, just to kind of provide a bit of context when comparing. It is for domestic use, and it's to be wall hung, so there's no pedestal. You should not include pedestals, and this is one of the things that we've experienced in the past with countries, that they price pedestals, which obviously support it, and they've also priced the plug, the taps, and so on forth, but this is not to be included. Please only price what you see, and that is purely the hand wash basin, nothing other than that. Again, it says exclude taps, trap, and pipe work, just to confirm that. Again, I don't expect necessarily these dimensions for a hand wash basin are going to be precisely specific for each of your countries. So we don't expect that, but what we will ask again, as we always do, when your dimensions for your hand wash basin do differ, please can you tell us what the price reflects? So if it's, say, a 200 millimeter depth, a 600 millimeter length with a 400 millimeter width, then please provide that to us. Additionally, if you also have the weight, that would be useful as well, but that's not as easy to obtain as the size. So please try and provide as much information as possible, not just the price, but also what the specifics are, and by that I mean dimensions. The next item we have, we require pricing, is high yield steel reinforcement, as displayed here. So it's kind of the ribbed rebar, which would maybe go into a concrete foundation or something of that kind. We have asked you all to price 1 ton, and by ton I mean metric ton, and just to confirm, 1,000 kilograms. So 1 ton is 1,000 kilograms is what is priced for this. It's high yield steel reinforcing bars, material steel. The quality is of a high yield strength, and we also have a diameter. So these reinforcing bars, we can see, well, we can't necessarily make that out from the picture, but the diameter for this is 16 millimeters. And when steel is of a diameter, high yield steel that is, of a 16 millimeter diameter, we know the weight per meter is 1.58 kilograms, and that's when it reflects a 16 millimeter diameter. If it's 20 millimeters diameter, then obviously the weight, the kilograms per meter, are likely to increase to something, just talking hypothetically, maybe in excess of 2 and so on forth. So we do ask you, please, if you can't price for a 16 millimeter diameter but only a 20 or a 14 millimeter, please can you tell us this information in the notes which you submit to us, and also provide the calculations that you've come to calculating the price per ton, including the weight, i.e. the 1.58 kilograms per meter, if that's something which you've used. Please don't include for any cutting and bending. This is to be excluded. It is literally to provide this as it is, as it comes, as you can see it, just to be delivered to site. So high yield steel deformed bars, we've found from experience, are the most common steel which is used in reinforcements. It has a higher carbon content than that of mild steel, and it also provides a higher tensile strength. And obviously, with those superior characteristics comes a superior price. So again, in the next presentation, which will follow this, I'll go through some logics where you can ensure that they make sense. So for instance, the mild steel reinforcement should be less than the high yield steel reinforcement. And moving on to the next item, it's very similar to what we've just seen. I'll just take it back again. So the high yield steel, which we just discussed, and then the mild steel reinforcement. So this is the only difference between the two are that the high yield steel it has a higher carbon content, higher tensile strength, and it has a premium attached. We ask you to please again price for where you can. Mild steel reinforcement, which is of a 16 millimeter diameter, which will again work out at 1.58 kilograms a meter. Exclusions, again, as was before, cutting and bending are to not be included. They are to be excluded from any prices submitted. And the notes we have here: mild steel is the most common steel available for fabrications, as it is more ductile. And we reiterate 16 millimeter diameter bars weigh 1.58 kilograms per meter, as is detailed here. Therefore, 633 meters is required for 1,000 kilograms. So it's 1,000 divided by 1.58 kilograms per meter to get you 633. Again, if you have a 20 millimeter and it provides a different weight per meter, you can substitute your weight per meter to establish how many meters are required to achieve 1,000 kilograms, which is ultimately what we're asking you to collect. The next item we ask you to price is structural steel section. Again, we request that you price for 1 ton, and by that we mean 1,000 kilograms. The type of structural steel is that it is a mild steel I-beam, and you can see the letter or a capital I. So that is how you know what an I-beam is. There's your I, and that's the material of which is steel. It's a mild steel. The thickness, we have a flange of 7.9 millimeters and a web of 4.8 millimeters. We also have the dimensions of 178 millimeters by 102 millimeters by 19 millimeters thick. So this distance from here to here will be 102. From here to here, 178. And then the thickness of the steel, it's difficult to show, but you can see the thickness here and here, that is 19 millimeters. And when one considers these dimensions, if you price for exactly what has been specified, then the weight is 19 kilograms per meter. I mean, this looks like it's probably around maybe 5 meters, so that's probably going to be the best part of 100 kilograms. So if, as we're pricing for 1,000 kilograms, we might well need for 20 of those, 20 times 5 to get you 100 kilograms. Again, you can substitute your specifics. If you can't achieve a weight of 19 kilograms a meter, you can substitute into the formula to arrive at what distance you will need. better price for achieving 1,000 kilograms. The next item we have is sheet metal roofing. We ask you to price 1 square meter of this. The type of the sheet metal roofing is that it is a twin skin roofing panel, and it's color coated steel or aluminium. So this, as we can see here, it's either color coated steel, as shown by this image here, or aluminium profile sheeting with a 100mm insulation internal liner sheet. So we have 100mm insulation, which is shown by the yellow insulation here, and also I think that the white insulation here. So there's a fair bit of insulation incorporated within the sheet metal roofing. Please ensure you price sheet metal roofing with insulation. One of the things that we've experienced in the past from having conversations with different countries on workshops such as this is that they have priced just for the sheet of the metal, so just this bit here, and not included for anything beneath that. So that's a considerable cost driver to this. The insulation, which we can see here, might comprise a fiber-free rigid thermoset phenolic core, and we provide an example of that as Kingspan Cooltherm K107 pitched roof boards. So that is a specification, a typical specification for this type of sheet metal roofing. We don't expect you to price this because it's probably not going to be something that you can procure with ease in your countries, but it is there so you can see what Kingspan Cooltherm K107 looks like and read more information for you then to kind of benchmark against what you can find in your countries, which are of a similar kind of quality, thermal performance, and so on forth. The next item we have is the PVCU drain pipes. This is the one that I discussed yesterday, where it had fundamentally changed from cast iron to PVCU. As last year with the cast iron, it is priced in the same format. So we are after the price per meter. We ask that you try to obtain prices for quantities in with a minimum order of 10 meters. Because one is very unlikely to just buy 1 meter of this, because unless they're doing a renovation project, which isn't in the nature of the ICP survey, it's of a mid-sized project, not a small renovation type. The type of material is that it's PVCU. Apologies on the typo there, that they seem to be the wrong way around. And that is polyvinyl chloride. Again, the diameter is 150 millimeters, and it's a revised item. One may say it's a new item, changed from cast iron pipe to PVCU pipe. And this is for drainage, just for clarity. So it's used for drainage, and it would be capable of 10 bar pressure. From our experience, these types of pipes come in 3 meter lengths. So for instance, if you're trying to place an order for a minimum order of 10, and they come in 3 meter lengths, you're going to need 4 3 meter lengths, i.e. 12 meters. And then the total price, you can then divide by 12 to ascertain what the price per meter will be for this item. The next item we are after is a copper pipe. This is priced per meter. And like the previous item, we ask that you try to obtain prices for a minimum order quantity of 10 meters. It's a copper pipe. There's nothing really more other than to say about that. The diameter is that it's 15 millimeters. So I think that's quite an important one. It's not huge. It's quite narrow. Certainly 10 times less than the PVCU drain, and it's commonly used for the supply of hot and cold water within buildings. The next item is a new item. and it's the plastic PBT or MDPE pipe. So just to clarify that the material, plastic PBT, PBT stands for polybutylene, and the other alternative is MDPE. So PBT and MDPE are fundamentally different, although they are relatively similar. And MDPE stands for polyethylene. So we ask that you price for a meter. We ask when obtaining prices that you request a minimum order quantity of 10 meters. And the diameter for this particular pipe is slightly greater than what we had for the copper pipe, but not much different, and it's 20 millimeters. And again, just like the copper pipe, this is used for the supply of hot and cold water. So this is generally a more economical solution to the copper pipe, which we have found to be progressively more common in construction projects from our experience. If countries are unable to obtain prices for, say, 20 millimeter diameter pipe, then but you can price for a 18 millimeter or a 25 millimeter. Again, we really do request that you tell us this information, because it is a driver. I mean, obviously, the greater the diameter of the pipe, generally speaking, the greater the price. I mean, that's the logic. Sometimes, bizarrely, the logic isn't always the case. If there is a common size which is fabricated, it can actually work out the opposite. But generally speaking, the bigger the pipe, the more costly it comes in. Another new item which has been added to the survey for 2021 is the mineral wool insulation, as we can see here in the image. And this is to be priced by the square meter. And we ask that when you obtain prices for this mineral wool insulation, you ask for them. So minimum order quantity of 10 meters squared is requested. It's mineral wool insulation, that's the material type. And the thickness, as we can see by what I'm hovering over now, is 100 millimeters squared, 100 millimeters thick. Typically, its use is for insulation of walls and roof. So it improves thermal performance of buildings. Mineral wool insulation is generally purchased in rolls. As you can see here, the person has obviously began to start to unroll it, but generally speaking, it would arrive within a whole roll. And to calculate a meter squared weight, one needs to calculate the size of the roll, i.e. the length of it. So as I'm kind of showing you there, when it's rolled out, Swiss roll, times the width to get your size in meters squared. Please, can you, if you can't price for insulation which is 100 millimeters thick and it's less or more than, but you can price per meter squared, please ensure you communicate the thickness, because that's a cost driver for this particular item. Likewise, if you price for a different type of insulation, something different to mineral wool or slightly different, and please make sure that you inform us what precisely it is, so we can ensure comparability. And I think this is the last item for materials. It's the third new item and the final new item which we've introduced in the survey this year. And it is the precast concrete bull-nosed curb. So it's one that's likely to feature on, we think, civil engineering projects for certain, certainly within road projects, and possibly also in residential and non-residential projects as well, where the requirement to provide some of the infrastructure, again roads, is a necessity. We ask that the price submitted is the price per meter, and we ask that you request a minimum order quantity of 10 meters for this precast concrete curb. And the size of the curb it's 125 millimeters, by 150 millimeters height. A little bit supplementary information for you to consider for this new item is that the curb will achieve an abrasion resistance of less than or equal to 23 millimeters wide, and that's the wheel abrasion test. And the material density, the precast concrete, is 2,300 kilograms a meter cubed. That is typically speaking, so not necessarily going to be precise. If the precast curb is of a different dimension to these, again, or it isn't a full nose curb, it's a different shape, please ensure that you communicate that within the notes submitted. Likewise, if the abrasion resistance is of a better level than this or a lesser level, please let us know so we can respect that when validating later on. Apologies, there is one more material, although it's not really a material. It's a bit of a, it's not anything really, electricity. And this is, it's measured 1 kilowatt hour, and its use is for commercial use, and it's a typical average tariff. If, for instance, the unit of measure is of a different type to kilowatt hour in your country, then please can you convert it, or if you cannot convert it to kilowatt hours, you don't know the conversion, ensure that you put the information of what the actual unit reported is so we can respect it when validating and obviously advise of the appropriate conversion to you. So the next 10 items are plants. I say plant, it's actually equipment rental. It's just within the UK, it's more commonly referred to as plant. So please consider this as equipment rental for continuity of the survey and consistency purposes. So the first item of equipment rental we have is a wheeled loader and excavator with an operator. So the first 5 items for equipment rental are going to include the operator, and the next 5 are going to exclude it. And we are after the price to hire this item, the price per hour to hire it, and that price per hour is to hire this and also the person who will drive it. So those 2 prices. We've got a indicative brand and model, a JCB 3CX Super Site Master, and some more specifics below, and we'll go through these for each of the next 4 items for equipment rental. The engine power for this particular item is 70 kilowatts, which also equates to a horsepower of 94. The travel speed for this excavator and loader is 30 kilometers an hour, and the operating width is 2 meters. The operating weight is 8,000 kilograms, and the operating capacity for the loader, i.e. this on the front, is 4,000 kilograms, and the backhoe, you can just about make out here on the back, is 700 kilograms, and it can dig to a depth of 4 meters deep. Prices for all equipment rental today, I'll mention this once and only once, so I won't go on it for each of the items. Prices should not include, they should exclude operating fuel, equipment insurance and life insurance. So please don't include this on any prices submitted. We ask that you specify the equipment brand and model for which you have priced, so we can compare the specifics with obviously what we have here, the indicative one. So that is something we really do stress that you provide to us, because we don't expect this brand and model is necessarily appropriate for your countries. There is no one size fits all globally. So these indicative descriptions are just to provide a steer on countries for comparability. So the next item, the second item for equipment and rental, is a tracked tractor with an operator. Again, it's 1 hour to hire that tracked tractor and also to hire the operator. The brand, or an example of a brand for this particular item, is Caterpillar. The model is a D6T standard. The engine power this machine will produce is 170 kilowatts or 220 horsepower, and the speed for which it can travel at is 10 kilometers an hour. The operating width is slightly more than what we just saw. It is 3 meters, so slightly better operating width than the excavator and loader. The operating weight is 20,000 kilograms. And again, we ask where you don't price for a Caterpillar D6T standard, you do advise us what you have priced for this particular item so we can ensure comparability. So on to the third item for equipment rental, we have a skid steer loader with operator. Again, it's collected the price per hour for both the skid steer loader and also the operator. The brand example for this particular item is Bobcat, as we can see on the back. It's the model of this particular item illustrated is it's a Bobcat S630. The engine power for this particular model is 55 kilowatts, which equates to 74 horsepower. Just like the previous item, the travel speed is 10 kilometers an hour, and the operating width is 1.8 meters. As I'm hovering over here now, so the front sort of shovel on the front is 1.8 meters. The operating weight is 3,500 kilograms, and the operating capacity is 1,000 kilograms. So again, all of these specifics refer to this precise brand and model as per the previous 3 slides as well. We don't expect you to be able to all price this exact model. So when you don't price this model, please tell us what you have priced. The fourth item we ask that is priced is a tandem vibrating roller with operator. So it's priced per hour, again with the operator, yes. And the example illustrated here, you probably can't make it out there, but that is JCB. That is the brand for this particular model illustrated. And the model for this is a VMT 500. And the engine power for this particular example is 33 kilowatts, which equates to 47 horsepower. And the travel speed of this vibrating roller is 6 kilometers an hour. So it's a bit slower than the previous items we've kind of looked at. And the operating width is 1.4 meters. The roller can roll a width of 1.4 meters. And the operating width, the operating weight is 5,000 kilograms. And that is the fourth item for equipment rental. The last item for equipment rental is compact track loader with operator. So we ask that you price per hour, including the operator, as well as the rental of the compact track loader. This example here, as you can see on the back here, it is a Bobcat. But we can't read that because it's quite small. And the model is a T190. And this particular model would achieve an engine power of 46 kilowatts, which is 61 horsepower. And the travel speed for this particular model is 11 kilometers an hour. The operating width, as illustrated by the mouse hovering over, is 1.7 meters by the black shovel on the front. And the operating weight is 3,500 kilograms. and the operating capacity is 850 kilograms. So that is the compact track loader with operator, which we ask that you price. Again, please can you all try to provide any information on the brand and the model where it differs. I think these two are the key pieces of information that we require from you, because we can then research it ourselves, or other countries or NIAs can research it in their own time and get the performance characteristics, travel speed and so on and forth to ensure comparability. The next 5 items are the same as the first 5. So they're going to look familiar because we were only looking 5 slides ago. The only difference to this, to the first item for equipment rental, is that this is without the operator. So everything here, all of the SPDs provided are the same, except from this one here, which is no. Previously it will have been yes, and that's with operator, no. Without operator is confirmed on the image. So I'll quickly whiz through the next 4. The tracked tractor without the operator, so no operator for this one, again, for the 7th item. The 8th item for equipment rental is a skid steer loader without the operator. The 9th item for equipment rental is the tandem vibrating roller without operator. And then the 10th is what we just were on a second ago, the compact track loader without operator. So I think the key thing is to obviously price for what you priced the first time round, but to exclude the operator on the second occasion for 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 numbers of equipment rental. And that's the equipment rental detailed. The next items will be labour, and we've got 7 of those. So the first item we have is a general labourer, and that is unskilled. So we have, we ask that you price for a building construction labourer and the cost per hour. Again, it's reiterated the skill level is unskilled. The salary type is gross, and I'll on the next presentation I'll be able to provide more clarity, hopefully, for you all on what the difference is between gross and net, because informal pay is something which is common globally, and that informal payment arrangement, i.e., for instance, cash in hand, is not what we want here, because that reflects net pay. We are after gross pay, but I will expand on this shortly. There is no training required. They're unskilled. So there's 6 definitions of tasks performed by a building construction profession, building construction labourer, where they might assist with demolition work. And these items are, they might clean used building bricks and doing other simple work on demolition sites. They might mix or pour and spread materials such as concrete, plaster and mortar. They might dig and fill holes and trenches using hand tools. They might spread sand, soil, gravel and similar materials, and loading and unloading construction materials, excavated material and equipment, and transporting them around construction sites using wheelbarrows, hods and hand trucks. And the last example item we have is clean work sites and removing obstructions. And we ask that you specify the average number of hours worked per day and the average net to gross rate. The second item for labour is a bricklayer, which will be skilled, as we can see on the image here, where he's laying a brick on a building site. And we after the price per hour for that bricklayer, that skilled bricklayer. And we want the gross rate, not the net rate. And the training a bricklayer will typically have gone through to be able to do the task is they will have gone to a technical college or a similar institution, or alternatively done on the job training. And the definition for a bricklayer is They lay bricks, they cut stones and other types of building blocks in mortar to construct and repair walls, partitions, arches and other structures. So example tasks, there's 3 for this particular skill, is laying stone, brick and similar building blocks to construct or repair walls, partitions, fireplaces and other structures. Alternatively, they may lay footpaths, curbs and or pavements. And they may lay bricks or other masonry to build patios or garden walls and other decorative installations. So the third labourer we ask that is priced is a plumber, as you can see here, beneath the wash basin, it looks like, with the piping, repairing something by the looks of it as well. We are after the price per hour for this skilled person, and we need the gross pay, not the net pay. And they will have gone through training just like the bricklayer. The definition of a plumber is they assemble, install, repair and maintain pipe systems, fittings and fixtures for water, gas drainage, sewerage systems and hydraulic and pneumatic equipment. There's 4 example tasks where they might measure, cut, thread, bend, joint, assemble, install, maintain and repair pipes, especially with regards to water supply and sewage systems and heating systems. They might also install gas appliances, dishwashers and water heaters, including also sinks and toilets in buildings. They may also lay clay, concrete or cast iron pipes in ditches to form sewers, drains or water mains, or for other purposes. And the last task is they might test, inspect, examine systems and pipes using pressure gauge, hydrostatic testing, observation or other methods. So when it comes to finishing a building, usually they require sign off in I think most countries to show that they comply to the building standards, and a plumber will go in and inspect the plumbing systems to ensure they are fit for purpose and compliable. The 4th item for labour is a carpenter skilled. So as we can see here, gentleman with a hard hat, and he's looking like he's about to saw a piece of timber, probably for the roof work, I'm presuming. And we're after the price per hour for this skilled individual, and the salary type again is gross. And they're likely to have undergone some form of training, such as a technical college or on the job, as the previous 3 items. And a carpenter will cut, shape, assemble, erect, maintain and repair various types of structures and fittings made from wood and other materials. So they make, alter and repair structural and other woodwork at a workbench and on a construction site. So we can see him doing exactly that with his workbench. They also construct, erect and install heavy framed wooden structures on building sites. So for instance, the roofing, as we can see above, would be considered a heavy framed wooden structure, I expect. And they are also fitting, assembling and altering internal and external fixtures of buildings, such as walls, doors, window frames, etc. So you might want to put a window frame, a timber window frame in there by the looks of it. So on to the 5th labour item. We have a structural steel worker, and this is a skilled type of worker. As we can see, they are welding, and they've got their safety goggles on and safety gloves, probably steel toe caps. And it looks like he's welding some rebar reinforcements. I'm not quite sure precisely what, but it's something along those lines. We need the price for per hour for a structural steel worker. As I said, they will certainly have undertaken some training, so they know obviously what to wear and how to do the welding. A definition of this particular type of worker is that they assemble, erect and dismantle structural metal frames or buildings and other structures. Got a number of example tasks. So they might mark metal framework as a guide when drilling, cutting and shaping them for use in buildings or other structures. They drill, cut and shape structural steel in workshops. They erect steel framework for buildings, bridges and other constructions. So they work on all basic headings, non-residential, residential and civil engineering. Assembling and erecting the framework and other metal parts of ships' structures. Shaping and fitting structural steel plates of ships under construction or repair. And riveting structural metal members by hand, machine or pneumatic riveter. So they're typical tasks performed by a structural steel worker. The sixth item is an electrician, which is skilled. And we ask that you provide a price per hour for that electrician. The general definition for the electrician is they install, maintain and repair electrical wiring systems and related equipment and fixtures. So you can see this particular electrician looks like he's in some kind of cupboard with a number of wires coming out of it. So he's obviously doing something certainly within these tasks. There's around about 8 different task examples. So I'll pick up a couple of them. For instance, they might install, maintain and repair electrical wiring systems and related equipment in various buildings. They might also test for continuity of circuitry and position and install electric switchboards. And also whenever a building, be it non-residential or residential, is finished, an electrician will need to go through and ensure that it complies with all of the necessary safety and legislation, and sign that off in due course. So they are an integral part of the construction process. And even in a civil engineering context, they are also very important. For instance, on a roadworks project, where you're building a road, you might be putting some lighting in place, and the electrician would certainly need to be involved in that aspect of the work. So the last item for labour today, and for 2021, is the machine equipment operator, skilled. So we ask that this gentleman here is priced per hour. They're considered to be skilled, so they know how to operate this and other types of machinery. It doesn't necessarily need to be a machine operator for an excavator, as you can see here. It might be a machine operator for a different type of machinery, as we see on the previous ones. They'll have undertaken training, and the general definition operating a machine such as bulldozers, excavators and front end loaders to excavate, grade, level, smooth and compact earth or similar materials. And we've got a host of other tasks that they will do. Again, for instance, operating and monitoring power roller to compact and smooth layers of material in making roads. So certainly going to be useful and required in civil engineering projects. And another example is here, operating and monitoring machinery equipped with concave steel blades to move, distribute and level earth, sand, snow and other materials. So that one kind of spans all basic headings. And we also have a painter, but I believe a painter isn't used on this survey. I believe it's an additional one for Asia. So I mean, I'll provide an explanation of this, but just treat this with caution as it might not feature in your survey. So we have a price required per hour for the painter, who's obviously painting a wall, external wall, as we can see here. And they will have undergone some form of training in a technical college or on the job training. And their tasks that they perform are that they prepare surfaces of buildings and other structures for painting, and they apply protective and decorative coats of paint or similar materials, or cover interior walls and ceilings of buildings with wallpaper or other finishes. They do both outside, as we can see in this image here, but probably more commonly inside buildings, plasters work and the like, where they will go in and paint the ceilings and the walls. And that concludes the various items that feature within the ICP Construction and Civil Engineering Survey for 2021. So now, if everyone's happy.
Thank you so much, Aaron, for your excellent presentation. Both your explanation and the pictures will be a great guide to be able to collect information for this survey. So thank you so much. And then let's move on to the intra and inter-economy validation of item prices of the questionnaire with some examples.
Sure, yeah. Just quickly find that presentation.
We see your presentation. It's fine.
Excellent, thank you. So today I've got around, I think about 15 or so slides to run through on intra-economy and inter-economy validation, which you might want to consider when looking at your prices in your countries. There's some logic that I'll run through in due course, so you can ensure that the logic is followed, and if not, why it isn't followed. So this is the agenda of today's presentation. So I'm going to begin shortly giving an introduction on this. And then I'm going to go into, which I'm going to probably focus on most of today's presentation on, which is the intra-economy validation. And as part of this, I'm going to talk about prices, equivalent materials, units of measurements and dimensions, where they differ. And we'll also talk about relevance indicators and resource mixes as we did like yesterday, and so we'll touch on that again. And then I'll give some consistency checks of similar / related items. After each of these, I'll then go into the overview, provide an overview of inter-economy validation. So as an introduction, the price data submitted by economies undergo 3 main validation stages, as illustrated here in the 3 bullets. So the first stage is intra-economy validation. And this is effectively at national level, so where we are now at national level. And we've got national interagencies validating the data collected before submitting to regional interagencies. So NIA, National Interagency, and RIA is Regional Interagency, just before anyone asks. So that is the first validation round, intra-economy, which is done on, as I said, a national level. Following that, it then goes up a level, which is then termed the inter-economy validation. So this is where RIAs, regional interagencies, conduct regional validation workshops to validate submitted data at the regional level. And then after this validation, the inter-economy validation, a global validation exercise is undertaken by the ICP GO, Global Office that is. and they validate data from all ICP participating economies and countries worldwide. So the NIA is step one. So prices and other information, as I said, intra-economy. Stage two is the RIA, so regional PVPs and related indicators with US dollars as base, were referred to as inter-economy validation. And then stage three, done at the global office, the GO, is global PVPs and related indicators with USA as a base. So that would be the PVP in relation to the United States as the base. So on to intra-economy validation, which we'll spend most of the time today on. So during the intra-economy validation process, NIAs, together with national construction experts, where applicable, verify the completeness and accuracy of the information collected during the survey. So this is where it is really useful and helpful, where countries haven't just submitted their prices, but they've also provided supplementary information which will help in understanding what the price reflects. That is especially where it is slightly different to what has been requested, because we don't expect countries to price precisely everything as they should. The NIAs confirm with the national construction expert that the prices reported should be those paid by construction contractors to their suppliers. They should reflect the buying power of contractors undertaking a significant amount of works. They should also include non-recoverable taxes. They should be for typical construction projects within an economy, and they should represent national average prices. I just lost my contact. I don't know what's happened there. So more specifically, materials, usually the price is paid after discounts to manufacturers or intermediaries, and by intermediaries we mean agents or building merchants who sell these items, and it should importantly include all non-recoverable taxes. Equipment rental should be the rental charge paid to hire companies or rates paid for internal hire, excluding operating fuel, equipment, insurance, and life insurance. And lastly, we have labour, the cost to the contractor of employing the workers. This is a really, I think, a real key one today. And I'll just read it here. So we've got informal payment arrangements for labour are common in construction. Some payments is in the form of wages, subject to tax and so on, which employers' costs are incurred, while other payments are in cash, and respondents should consider when determining what is an average wage. So I think the question here is, where countries receive payment for labour informally, can this be accepted for the purpose of the ICP survey? Because I think informal pay arrangements is quite a common feature, certainly for a lot of countries present today. And the answer to this question is informal payment arrangements for labour, for example, payments in cash, are common in construction for a number of countries, as I just mentioned, and these payments are net and not gross, and exclude provision for taxes and employers' costs. I mean, although this is representative for countries where informal pay arrangements are the norm, this is not what has been asked in the survey, as respondents should provide gross rates, i.e. the cost to the contractor, which importantly includes taxes and any employer costs. And I think it all boils down to this last piece. And It is, although representativity is an important factor in the ICP survey, comparability takes precedence, and net rates are fundamentally different, incomparable to gross rates, and are not acceptable. So if countries have reported a net rate, they should indicate this in the notes and comments and show the percentage adjustment that will increase it to a gross rate. So this will effectively assist in validation by allowing comparisons between countries. So I think it's really, really important to provide that detail and what assumption you have used in effectively grossing those labour rates up from a net rate to a gross rate. Equivalent materials. So materials included in a construction survey are selected on the basis of their common use across countries. However, the listed materials may not always be available or used in all countries or economies. And in these cases, equivalent materials are selected and priced. So NIAs should verify with the national construction expert that the alternative material is indeed equivalent to the original material. So obviously, when in possession of this information, then this validation can be done. When and the NIAs aren't in possession of what has been priced, then nothing can be done other than that. Substitution is clearly indicated in the price survey questionnaire, and that sufficient information is provided on the material. So the next item is unit of measurement and dimensions. For each item, prices are to be reported in the preferred unit and quantity. It's crucial to verify that the reported prices respond to the requested units. So it's really important that this is verified. Prices can be reported in alternative units. That is based on either the metric or imperial system. However, the NIAs must verify this, and that the alternative unit is clearly indicated and all information is given, and that the alternative unit can be converted into the preferred unit. And the second bullet here, errors and problems in units are the most common reason for prices that are not comparable across economies. Thus, utmost attention should be paid to this point during the intra-economy validation. I think a good example for this one is if cubic meters are requested, prices can be reported in cubic feet, say. However, the price cannot be reported in running meters, which cannot be converted to cubic meters. So ideally, we ask that you price that what is requested by the preferred unit. However, if you don't know how to convert it, then ensure that you communicate the alternative unit for which the price reflects is captured in the notes column. So then the NIA can make the necessary adjustment to reflect that. So going back to the example just now, the cubic feet, if you don't know how to convert from cubic feet to cubic meters, then that's fine, but please ensure you note that in the notes. Otherwise, it's going to be very low because effectively a cubic feet is considerably less than a cubic meter. So we've got a number of conversion and factors for items with alternative quantities. So I believe everyone is or should be in possession of this. So where they have, again, this cubic foot, they can convert it to a cubic meter. So effectively, to understand this particular example, 35.3147 feet cubed is the equivalent of 1 meter cubed. And we also have conversions for cubic yards. So 1.3 cubic yards is the equivalent of 1 cubic meter. And also we have a weight, and that is 1.92 tons of aggregate is the equivalent of cubic meter, 1 cubic meter. But the one thing we must emphasize here is, although this is consistent, i.e. the cubic foot to cubic meter is consistent, as is the cubic yard, the ton is variable depending on the density of the material. And I think we can see that here. So the second item we have for sand, for concrete and mortar, the price for the ton, the multiplier is 1.6. So 1.6 tons of sand is the equivalent of 1 meter cubed. However, 1.92 tons of aggregate is the equivalent of 1 meter cubed, and that's because of the density difference between these materials. And there's other alternative units and conversion factors which you can apply to arrive at the preferred unit. So we've got there obviously volume dimensions or volume conversions. We also have area conversions. So to get to a square meter from a square foot, the conversion factor is 10.76. Square yard is 1.196. A sheet of 8 feet by 4 feet is 0.336. And then we also have at the bottom the ability for countries to effectively specify their length and width to ascertain what the size of that sheet is, and then convert to a meter squared appropriately. Relevance indicators. National experts indicate whether a material is commonly used in the construction project in an economy. They do so by indicating the relevance of items separately for each basic heading. In classifying material items as relevant or not relevant, the NIAs should check for completeness. That is, each available item has relevance indicated in each basic heading. So please, if it's applicable, put a 1. If it's not applicable, put a 0. Don't leave them blank, because the NIA and anyone else looking at it won't know whether it's applicable or not. It should have either a 1 or a 0. And then we have resource mixes. So percentages for resource mixes should be provided for each basic heading. Again, just to reiterate, the basic headings are residential, non-residential, and civil engineering. And the resource mixes are materials, equipment, rental, and labour. So NIAs need to ensure that the information is complete for each element, and the basic heading percentages add up to the totals. So as we can see here, this is a percentage. So 50% of residential buildings is typically associated with the materials, 15% is equipment rental, and 35% of the total price would be associated with labour. And if you add 50, 15, and 35 together, it will come to 100. And I mean, that's a validation check that everyone should be doing. And we also have the same concept and calculation which applies to non-residential and civil engineering. And we can see here, obviously, the weights associated with these basic headings differs depending on that. Some countries in the past have put values in here, and some have put percentages which don't unfortunately add up to 100. So it does happen. So we do please ask you just to pay close attention to this. So consistency of prices for similar or related items. NIAs also need to check the collected prices for consistencies. There are certain items whose prices are expected to be more costly than other items. And in some cases, these may not always be true. NIAs will have to confirm these cases and provide remarks if needed. So consistency of prices for similar or related material items. So the first example is materials. One example is the price for exterior plywood is expected to be higher than interior plywood. Again, the example for equipment rental, the price per hour for a tractor with an operator is expected to be higher than a tracked tractor without an operator. Another validation check you might want to undertake here is the tracked tractor with the operator, less the tracked tractor without the operator, should effectively be the price for the operative, because the difference between one and the other is with and without the operator. And we know in the labour survey we ask for how much an operator is, so there's a form of reconciliation one can do in validating that. Another consistency check for labour which can be undertaken is the price per hour for a skilled worker is expected to be higher than an unskilled worker. So skilled by those who've undertaken some form of training, be it at a technical college or on the job, or someone who's just a general labourer who doesn't necessarily have a particular skill per se. So on to inter-economy validation, the next stage on. So during inter-economy validation, NIAs and RIAs check the completeness and correctness of the submission and conduct validation of the price data and metadata across economies and countries. After an initial review of submitted data, the next step is to validate the data using Dikhanov validation tables. And the Dikhanov table is an approach which was developed by Yuri Dikhanov of the World Bank and first introduced and implemented in the 2005 ICP. It's based on the country product dummy, the CPD method, used to estimate PPPs at the basic heading level. The Dikhanov tables make use of residuals from CPD regression at the basic heading level and higher level aggregates, whole household consumption, government compensation, construction and machinery and equipment, etc. So the various other surveys that are applicable. It identifies outliers among the PPP ratios and provides measures of price variations for products and economies. And CPD residuals are generated for each item for which prices are submitted by the countries. And each CPD residual value has a corresponding interpretation in terms of actual collected prices as a percentage with the predicted price. So as we can see here, this is from the World Bank Operation Guidelines, which was published in I believe 2015, and it effectively provides the validation and the color code, which you might well be familiar of when viewing PPPs and CPD residual values across countries within your respective interagency. So CPD residuals, which are between negative 0.25 and 0.25, won't be highlighted. That is, the actual price is 78% to 128% of the predicted price. Where the CPD residual is between negative 0.75 and negative 0.25, and also the positive 0.75 and 0.25, they're highlighted in yellow. Then CPD residuals which are between -2 and -0.75 or 0.75 and 2 are highlighted in red. And any CPD residuals which are less than 2 or greater than 2 are highlighted in black. So obviously the black items are the ones which require the closest scrutiny, and then followed by red and then yellow. And the items that are coloured in black are those that the actual price is less than 14% or more than 739%, of the predicted price. But I mean, this is obviously all inter-economy validation, which is typically undertaken by the regional interagency. So RIAs will request NIAs to check the submitted average prices of products flagged in yellow, red and black as shown by the previous slide. And NIAs should confirm or revise the average price after further review and verification of the items. And lastly, NIAs should resubmit the verified average prices to the RIA. And that concludes this presentation.
Excellent presentation. Thank you very much for this explanation on this intra and inter-economy validation. It's essential to review the consistency of the information at country level. For example, what you said about prices for similar items, or for examples as the rental of equipment with and without operator, or certain products that logically should have a price difference, as well as the validation between countries and the CPD model used. So thank you very much. All this explanation will be very enlightening for the collection and the validation process. Now we have a space, a session devoted to the question and comments. We have some question and comments from yesterday's chat, and now we're going to review them, and also we're going to talk about the comments in the chat today. So if you agree, Aaron, we can start with a question from yesterday. Okay?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. From yesterday's chat, we have some comments. Let's see. We have a question that is for ECLAC. The deadline for collection of prices for the special surveys, in this case, construction, machinery equipment, and education, and rentals, private education. We have all these scheduled in the teams, the spacing teams, share with all the focal points, but we are going to circulate it again, and especially for this survey, in the final remarks, Ana Victoria is going to present the schedule for this survey. We have also a comment from Yvonne Newland regarding to IT was still rebuilding after the earthquake, so the share of GDP would be higher. I think this is related to the presentation of William, where we could see the importance and of this construction sector in all the GDP, and it's yes. From Belize, Jacqueline Sabal, why was the solar panel removed? Just curious. Aaron, could you have a comment on this question? Mm-hmm.
Sure, yeah. So the solar panel, the pump, and there were two other items which were associated with, I think, machinery and equipment, which have been long in the survey, which have always been problematic. through all surveys that certainly I've been involved with, and also before, certainly in 2005, I believe they were problematic then as well. Because of the price disparity so high and the interpretation is so large, the decision was taken to exclude these from the survey. These are, the solar panel is a really relevant one. I completely agree with your comment on why was it removed, because I feel more so than ever, this should be included. And I believe from previous correspondence with the World Bank that it features in one of the other surveys, the machinery and equipment survey, or yeah, that survey, they have solar panels in there. So in theory, that could be used in the future, and that I think was the recommendation which we made, because yeah, solar is, with everyone trying to reduce carbon, they're trying to generate their own electricity by utilizing natural resources such as the sunlight. So as I say, watch this space, and I'm sure it's being collected in another survey, and it can potentially be incorporated, because mechanical and electrical equipment, which is no longer collected in this survey, is still very much part of construction. You can't get away from that. All buildings have mechanical and electrical equipment, but it is evolving as well. For instance, I think gas systems, they are, the gas supply is being reduced, and some countries don't allow it anymore. So it's having to evolve, and this is why solar panels really prevalent now.
Okay. We have another question from Giuliano Corner. He asked about what is meant by salary type in labor.
So I think the salary type is that it is gross, not net. So it should include taxes and employer costs. So I think that's the really important thing. And informal pay arrangements such as cash in hand, although that's part of the picture, countries need to provide net prices for comparability purposes, gross prices, so that they'll need to have an allowance to effectively gross them up.
Good, thank you. And we have a question from Marisa Ramotai, and she preferred to do it by herself. So Marisa, Rafa, can you have give her the access? I think she has the microphone access. Marisa, do you want to come in? Maybe we can go to the other question, and then when Marisa is ready, she can give us her comment. So from Eduardo, in case of common bricks, the mathematical operation of length by width by thickness should always be done. This is the question from yesterday.
Yeah, I saw that in yesterday's thread, and they're absolutely right. That calculation is correct. I think it was length times width times depth to achieve the volume of that brick. But I mean, there's nothing stopping you from doing width, length, depth, width. You can flip them around. As long as you multiply each of those together, that's effectively going to achieve a volume. But I believe, technically speaking, you should do length times width times depth. So that they're correct, I understand.
Okay. And Marisa, Can you open your microphone now? Marisa? Rafael, can you help Marisa to open her micro? She's not seeing the microphone preference. It's down. It's down the screen. In the bottom, at least in my screen, is in the left side. Rafael, let's move on to the other questions, and then Marisa could find or Rafael could help Marisa. Today we have some other questions. We have a question from Roland. Let me check. Yes, I have a question from Roland. In case the required products are not available, can we provide other similar products or same material if available?
Absolutely, please. If you can try and match your items as close as possible, but if in doubt, price what you can, but make sure any difference is also communicated as well. Otherwise, when it comes to validation, all that will have is a price for what has been requested, and the NIA and validation people will not be able to establish what the difference is. You will know it differs, but we won't know how it differs, and ultimately we need to know what that price reflects. So I think that's really, really important, and it doesn't stop you from pricing anything really, but we do ask that you price as close to what has been specified as possible. Then obviously the NIA or the World Bank can establish if it's comparable, and if not, discount it. But it's better to have that information because it might well be comparable, considered comparable.
Thank you, Aaron. I think that Peru, Consuelo Landa from Peru, has the same question. I'm going to read it in Spanish, but I think that the answer is what you said recently. ¿Qué pasa si en algunos países se utiliza otro tipo de material que no está en la lista propuesta? It's quite the same, ¿no? No, the question is about the type of materials that are not in the proposed list. It's more or less the same question that Roland raised, and the answer was given by Aaron. Now I have another question from Brazil, from Neymar Rodriguez. I'm going to say it in Spanish. Hay productos para las cuales tomamos el precio por unidad, pero sin embargo nos piden la conversión para metro cuadrado. Un ejemplo son las tejas de hormigón. Para los casos de conversión, les pregunto si sería importante recomendar rellenar el campo comentarios del formulario, añadiendo el precio en su unidad original para que ustedes hagan la verificación de nuestras conversiones. Eso es una primera parte de la pregunta y después vamos a la próxima.
I think I understand, and that's a question, a future question really. The current survey, in its current format, it doesn't allow for countries to specify the alternative or an alternative dimension from which it can then be calculated. But there's nothing stopping the survey to be developed in such a way that it does that in the future. The thing is, with the number of items and the number of conversions, it could be quite convoluted. But I think if I understand the question correctly, that is something that can be done. And I know other interagencies have a similar thing that they are developing, so it can work where you, as I say, you input, for instance, the size of your brick, length, width, and depth, and then it then calculates how many of those you need to price. It then says price X amount of bricks, and then it will give you the price per cubic meter. I'm sorry if I didn't interpret that question correctly. That's my understanding.
Thank you, Aaron. I have the second part of the question from Brazil, from Neymar, in Spanish again. Tenemos algunos productos que son recolectados durante todo el año en nuestra encuesta de construcción, llamada SINAPI. Para estos productos, ¿haremos el promedio del año de 2021 o calculamos el promedio solamente para el periodo de recolección del PCI T4 2021 y T1 2022? Quarter, trimestre. Excellent, thank you.
Good question. I think I better seek further clarification on it off the top of my head, which might not be right. I think prices for the construction survey should reflect a mid price for 2021, i.e. something like May or June. But yeah, I don't know honestly the correct answer. That's my understanding. I mean, I know, for instance, I'm helping Eurostat with their validation and data collection at present in the European region, and they have asked for countries to price, I think, base data of May. May 2021.
Maybe I will call it from the World Bank. Rui or William, yes, can come in to this question.
Yes. Hello.
Hello.
So if you look at the survey form, the construction survey form, there is one tab with instructions, and on that instructions tab you see instructions for prices. And in the instructions, it says that the survey seeks annual and national average prices. So it's for the reference year as a whole. Although mean prices for the mid-year, they are also acceptable. So if you have mid-year prices, June, July, that is acceptable, but ideally it's annual average prices.
Thank you, Rui. What we can do is to collect prices or the information for this questionnaire on Q4, but referring to the mid-year term in order to have this average year price. This can be done. we did this in this way because many of the construction projects were closed by the pandemic, by the effects of COVID-19. So that's why we prefer to extend the collection of this survey to the last part of the year. This is why we decided to do this way. Nevertheless, this is the you can check the information from previous months or quarters. So I think that this can be an alternative to do the work. William, do you want to add something? I saw you.
Hi, Claudia. Hi, everyone. I guess just for context for 2017, and to add to what Rui mentioned, usually for 2017 at least, the instructions for most regions, I mean, Eurostat is always a little different, was that it suffices to price mid-year prices for both construction and machinery and equipment. And I guess it's worth explaining the logic here. The logic of that is for almost every other item, you want to price different quarters because you assume there's some seasonal variation, for instance. With mid-year prices, the idea was let's find a time in the year in which construction, or in the case of machinery, these goods aren't really fluctuating throughout the year. It was always an open question whether in the Latin America region, what exactly do you mean by mid-year prices? Because in some countries, and perhaps Central America, the rainy season is different than the Southern Cone. So it's always a tricky to just define, what would be a, say, 1 month in which it's worth running the surveys. But I guess ultimately the thing to note is you want to be pricing goods and services for these surveys during a time that you could expect would be representative of the whole year. Again, as Claudia mentioned, due to COVID, things are a little different now. So I guess it's something to consider both from the ECLAC side and from the country side, figuring out what point of the year would be a representative point of the year in which pricing to take place in order to prevent a situation when you're pricing products during a unusual time of the year. So I guess that was a bit of the logic of why mid-year prices were usually recommended both for construction and for machinery and equipment. I hope that makes sense and didn't confuse you further.
Thank you, William. Let's see if Marisa can have access to the microphone.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good.
Good morning,
Excellent.
sorry. Yes.
Excellent.
Apparently because I was an attendee, I couldn't see the mic option. So I think the IT person made me a panelist, so now I can speak. So just to give some background to the question, in the 2017 cycle, we received a request from one of our member countries to include asphalt, since that was an important element used in road construction in the Caribbean. So we made the request, and it was determined that asphalt was more of an output rather than input. And so they said, the feedback we got that they would try to see if they could include some of the inputs for asphalt, which they mentioned bitumen and crushed rock. So I was asking if I noted that when you went through the materials, bitumen, I think wasn't there. So I was wondering why it dropped out, because I think it was included in the 2017 cycle. So I was just checking on that. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Marisa. Aaron, could you answer this comment?
Sure, yeah. So again, very much like the solar panel, we are in complete agreement that bitumen has a place in this survey, especially in regards to civil engineering projects. Looking at civil engineering projects, roads are the most cost significant type of project, generally speaking, in most countries around the world. This is quite stable as well. Roads are always being built and obviously resurfaced as well, built or resurfaced. And when you're building or resurfacing a road, you need the surface in itself, and that's made of bitumen. We've researched this ourselves in trying to ascertain what type of specification it would be appropriate for a couple of countries, and trying to establish that specification was really difficult, and it's quite a specialist area. And even after lengthy investigations, we ourselves were unable to come up with a common solution which both 2 or 3 countries could price. So if we were to then extend that globally across over 100 countries, we think there'd be great difficulty. And as a construction expert, we're having difficulty trying to get a price for bitumen. Other countries are likely to have the same problems. So although practically it's a great one to be included, practically trying to actually include it and incorporate it is another matter. I think this is one that certainly needs investigating again when the survey's done, to see if something can be done. But as I say, we got to a point with it when we weren't able to precisely specify something we had confidence in which could be priced globally. So yeah, totally take on board your recommendation, and we do agree with it, but trying to implement it practically is another ball game, really.
Okay, thank you very much. I understand the issue. Yes, I hope that in the future maybe some common specification can be found, because I know in the Caribbean that is an important element, and they had indeed requested that it be included. So I'm sorry to see that it can't be included. I'd just like to make some additional comments regarding our CARICOM country, specifically in terms of the lessons learned in the 2017 cycle. If I can go ahead, Claudia, through you.
Yes, of course, please go ahead.
Yes, I know that construction was a very difficult area for countries in terms of collecting the information. And I recall that we even had a meeting here in Guyana, and we looked at the construction survey to assist some of the countries that were struggling. And so from that meeting, I noticed some of the best practices that countries said they employed in order to get this information. They visited various construction sites. They said they spoke to their, I think the labor and, let me get this straight. They spoke to their planning and labor departments in order to collect wage data. Some said they spoke to someone from their contractors association. And some also indicated that they could only collect, they could only provide information that was in their CPI, which might be problematic, because from the various presentation, I know that these are prices that are supposed to be paid by contractors and not necessarily the household. And other countries indicated the challenge being that in order to collect that information, they needed the assistance of a quantity surveyor. And I think they had even requested assistance from ECLAC in order to finance a quantity survey. So I just wanted to highlight some of the issues that the countries had faced in the past for ECLAC and the World Bank to take on board, because I'm quite sure that some of the similar issues will come back in this cycle. And maybe also in terms of the best practices, sharing them, so that if other countries can maybe learn or can employ some of those same methods that were that other countries used when they were trying to collect this information in 2017 cycle. Thank you.
Thank you, Marisa. Aaron, do you want to answer, or maybe William, this part?
I just wanted to mention at least something related to the first part. I think Aaron really covered the underlying issue here of finding specifications for that one item, bitumen. was quite challenging. Of course, Aaron is the expert here. If he was having issues figuring out how to, specify these items, we were doing the same thing at the global office. We could not find the right way to really specify it. And I think the answer to the question as to why it got removed, I believe it came down to the fact that almost no countries in the Latin America and the Caribbean region ended up pricing it as it was specified. So that could be a function of the specification itself, or some other factor that was unknown to us. So from what I recall, only I think 2 countries in the Caribbean ended up pricing that one item, and 3 in Latin America. So I think that would be, I guess, the short answer to why it got removed. But of course, the underlying reasons probably relate more to what Aaron brought up, related to the specifications and how to properly map it out to then carry out the survey. Yeah.
Just a very quick question. When was it actually included in the survey? I wasn't aware.
Yeah, so Aaron, this was included as a regional construction item only for the Latin America and the Caribbean region. And if I recall correctly, the suggestion came from Jamaica to include it. And us at the global office, we tried to figure out, how to best map it out in terms of the SPDs. And I believe we reached out to either you or one of your colleagues to help us out as well.
Yeah, we definitely assisted on that, and yeah, it was a real tricky one. I think what's really important here is it doesn't stop. So any country who has a specification that they can provide, send it to us or the World Bank, or ECLAC, wherever, so that can be captured and considered for wider consumption. Because trying to find a precise specification for this item is difficult, and it's quite technical as well. But I mean, if we can start to assemble examples, then we can start to understand the commonalities and see what we can come up with. But at the moment, I know I've only got 2 or 3 options, and none of them seem to connect with one another. They all seem to be fundamentally different. So yeah, we're keen to get your input on this, and also any other items. So if you think there's anything else that there's an absolute call for in the survey, I think that's really important to try and communicate that when you issue your survey, so it can be considered in the future.
Yes, of course. Sobre estas buenas prácticas que le comenta Marisa, sería bueno si algunos de los países que están participando hoy día quisieran ofrecer su experiencia en esta encuesta. Tal vez Ecuador, que ya levantó esta encuesta en 2020, pueda darnos algunas luces sobre las fuentes de información que utilizaron, el uso de la opinión de expertos, tal vez, no sé, sería bueno si ellos quisieran entrar aquí a darnos su experiencia. Si es así, que si lo pueden poner ahí en el chat, y le pedimos a los organizadores de la reunión que por favor le den acceso al micrófono. Pero
Aló, muy buenos días.
tenemos, ahí está.
Sí, muy buenos días, ¿cómo están? Les saludo.
Eduardo, te escuchamos muy bajito.
¿Ahí sí me escuchan? ¿Aló?
Muy bajito, no sé.
Yo escucho bien.
¿Escuchan bien? Bueno, entonces soy yo.
Sí.
A ver, voy a poner mi parlante lo más fuerte posible. Ok, adelante, Eduardo.
Muy buenos días con todos, esperando que se encuentren bien junto a su familia en estos momentos complicados que estamos atravesando a nivel mundial. Bueno, en realidad nosotros levantamos la encuesta de construcción en el año 2020 justo porque estaba planificado para ese año, pero nadie sabía lo de la pandemia. En realidad, las experiencias que podemos compartir fue que varios artículos, como nos dan la especificación tal cual de la CEPAL, en algunos casos yo pienso que tienen otro tipo de denominación. Por ejemplo, hay varios, hablando del arregón para hormigón. Por ejemplo, nos piden a nosotros que sea de 9.5 a 37.5 milímetros, pero hay informantes que lo conocen como hormigón de 3/8 de pulgada y así, muchas cosas más. En sí tenemos problemas también con dificultades bastantes, yo pienso que hay con la madera, porque como hay varios tipos de madera, nosotros tenemos varios tipos de maderas aquí en el país, tanto madera blanda para carpintería como para ebanistería. Las medidas no son muy exactas y para convertirla a precio de metro cúbico tenemos que igual realizar la conversión que es de longitud por ancho y por profundidad. Y esto también depende mucho de la madera, porque por ejemplo, si es una madera que tenga mayor resistencia va a tener un mayor costo, si es una madera que tenga menor resistencia va a tener un menor costo. Esos son unos aspectos que en realidad nos afectan a nosotros al momento de recopilar la información, pero lo que tratamos de hacer es unirnos, adaptarnos a la unidad de medida que es la propuesta por la CEPAL, porque si no sería difícil compararnos, por ejemplo, si nosotros tenemos una pieza de madera, compararnos con un metro cúbico de madera de otro país. Lo que tratan tal vez es llevar una unidad de medida común a nivel mundial para que todo sea comparable. Pero en realidad hay varios artículos que necesitamos convertirlos, hacer un proceso de conversión para que su precio sea la unidad de medida sugerida. En relación también tenemos un poco nos llama la atención porque para los artículos que son, por ejemplo, los ladrillos y los bloques, nos sugieren una cantidad determinada de ladrillos que supuestamente, que aparentemente deben dar la cantidad de metros cúbicos, pero igual necesitamos obligatoriamente hacer la conversión de longitud por ancho y profundidad. Esa ya creo que es una regla para casi la mayoría de artículos que tenemos que hacer la conversión para obtener la unidad de medida correcta que nos sugiere la CEPAL. Tenemos tal vez un poco que nos llama la atención igual es lo de los materiales que son por ejemplo, para proyectos de tamaño mediano, sean edificios residenciales o no residenciales. En ese caso, los constructores nos han sabido manifestar que nosotros le digamos cuál es el proyecto de tamaño mediano. Lo común aquí en el país, por ejemplo, es un edificio que sea de 10 pisos y en realidad eso es lo que nosotros hemos consultado. Por ejemplo, que nos coticen el precio para un edificio de 10 pisos, ya sea el mismo para edificio residencial y no residencial. En relación de manera general, para las fuentes informantes, acudimos directamente a los productores, a los fabricantes. Por ejemplo, para el caso de las arenas, de los ripios y todo eso, acudimos directamente a las canteras. En sí, para la mano de obra, el costo de mano de obra, directamente la constructora ya nos reporta cuál es el precio. Para las encuestas de apoyo, directamente las constructoras ya tienen un sistema esos automatizado que les dice cuál es el costo que más o menos van a emplear, el costo por metro cuadrado que van a emplear para realizar algún tipo de construcción. Siempre en las obras de ingeniería civil se puede dar el caso que los porcentajes sean un poquito más elevados porque a veces tienen que incurrir en unos gastos extras que son tal vez seguridad o tener otro tipo de maquinaria para que puedan acceder a las obras. Eso en general tal vez les podría comentar con respecto a la información que hemos levantado aquí en el país. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias a ti, Eduardo. Una última consulta. toda esta información de apoyo que tiene que ver con las participaciones de la edificación residencial, lo residencial y obras civiles, ¿de dónde lo obtienen ustedes?
Esa información nosotros directamente la obtenemos de las empresas constructoras que realizan construcciones aquí de viviendas residenciales, no residenciales y obras de ingeniería civil aquí en el país. Directamente vamos a las empresas constructoras. No, es decir, los contratistas.
Sí, de acuerdo, pero esa información que se solicita para poder tener digamos, del porcentaje de las obras, cuánto es hacia residencial, no residencial y obras civiles.
Sí, justamente como les comentaba, ellos tienen los sistemas informáticos donde ellos estipulan cuál va a ser el costo total del proyecto. Por ejemplo, dice, si es que yo quiero hacer un edificio, siempre y cuando los edificios residenciales son un poquito más costosos que los edificios no residenciales, porque ya vienen baños, vienen más dormitorios, y en ocasiones los edificios no residenciales los hacen en un solo andar, tal vez con unas divisiones internas. Ellos ya tienen estipulado cuál es el costo general que es para cada uno de esos tipos de construcciones. Todo lo tienen en base a su sistema informático. A partir de eso, ellos ya saben cuánto es lo que van a gastar. Es que ellos ya todo lo tienen antes estipulado en papeles. Sabe cuál va a ser el costo de construir un proyecto para saber igual cuál va a ser su porcentaje de utilidad. El porcentaje de utilidad que ellos indican es más o menos que va a variar tal vez de un 8 a un 15%. Siempre ellos desean tener un mayor porcentaje de utilidad, pero siempre la utilidad que ellos van a tener va a ser de un 8 a un 15% dependiendo del proyecto que vayan a realizar.
Muchas gracias, Eduardo, por compartirnos la experiencia de Ecuador en la recolección de esta encuesta. Tenemos una pregunta de Lisbeth Laguna que quería hacerla ella misma. Lisbeth, te doy la palabra. ¿Tienes acceso al micrófono?
Buen día, ¿me escuchan?
Sí, te escuchamos, Lisbeth. Adelante.
Sí, perfectamente.
Ok, muchísimas gracias. Buenos días a todos. En realidad yo tenía dos consultas. Una de ellas era cuál es el número de observaciones que deberíamos de tener para cada uno de los ítems contemplados en la encuesta. Y lo otro es que yo les mencionaba que nosotros tenemos una encuesta mensual de precios de materiales de construcción que la levantamos en los establecimientos que venden estos materiales, que son ferreterías o establecimientos que venden específicamente materiales de construcción, es decir, los proveedores de los contratistas. Entonces, si en algunos casos coincidieran los productos que tenemos dentro de esa canasta de esa encuesta y los productos que están contemplados en el PCI, pudiéramos utilizar esta información de la que ya disponemos para poder pues, avanzar un poco, ahorrar recursos y sobre todo en este tiempo en el que el levantamiento de la información no es normal debido a la pandemia. Entonces, básicamente esa eran mis dos preguntas.
Aaron?
Yeah, I think that's really good. How many observations? The first part of the question is, I mean, ultimately, you only need one observation. However, obviously, if you can get multiple prices and then provide the average, then your confidence is going to be greater in that price, because you might, for instance, if you select one company to price for a particular item, they might be particularly expensive when actually it's less than that. So I think that, yeah, the greater the sample size, the better. However, we understand if you increase sample sizes, the work becomes greater and so on forth. So ultimately the answer to that is a minimum of one, but hopefully more than that. And the second part, where you explained that you collect these prices from the merchants on a monthly basis. I think that's really good. So you can experience and see the development over on a monthly basis to those prices, because typically, from my experience, certain materials experience price increases on a once a year, on a month, 1 month a year, where they'll maybe step up 5-10% depending on the natures at play. But I mean, when it comes to you using that information on an annual average basis, I guess what you can do in theory is you can take the sample for the months which you have information on, January, February, March, and so on forth, and then you can average it and supply that information. Or alternatively, as the World Bank said, you can use a mid-year price. The only downside to calculating an annual average at the present moment in time is we don't know what the price is going to be in August, September, October, November, December, which is half of the year. So we only have the first half of the year. So in a way, to calculate the annual average, you can only collect the annual average in December, or sorry, January, December at the absolute latest. So therein lies a problem when other countries have already completed the exercise, and we need consistency. So I think that's why a lot, and probably most of the countries, provide a mid-year price, because they don't collect it on a monthly basis. But yeah, I don't know if I've answered the question, but I think what you're doing sounds as though it's credible stuff, and you know, it's good to hear you thinking on these lines.
Muchas gracias por la respuesta.
Muchas gracias, Lisbeth, por tu pregunta y por la respuesta de Aarón. Me parece que está en la línea de lo que se necesita. Había una pregunta de Patricia Quesada. No sé si ella tiene acceso al micrófono ahora. De lo contrario, Patricia, ¿tú puedes conectar el micrófono? De lo contrario, nos vamos a mover. Primero que nada, agradecerle a Aarón, a William por las respuestas a toda esta problemática y temática tan compleja que tiene que ver con esta encuesta. Y seguir con la sesión 4, donde vamos a mirar, digamos, los aspectos principales que tuvimos como región durante la ronda 2017 en el tema de la encuesta de la construcción. Esta presentación va a estar a cargo de María Paz Collinao, que es parte del equipo de CEPAL. Así que, María Paz, te doy la palabra y te dejo aquí a cargo.
Gracias, Claudia. Buenos días, colegas. Espero estén todos bien. Yo les voy a comentar lo que hicimos en el equipo que trabajó en el PCI para la ronda 2017 con la información que los países nos entregaron respecto del formulario de construcción. El contenido se basa en la cobertura de la información, los principales retos que tuvimos que enfrentar en la ronda 2017 y cómo armamos la base de datos para luego iniciar el proceso de cálculo que Aarón presentó ayer. Aquí les presento cuál fue la cobertura de información que dispusimos nosotros en la ronda 2017. Para el total de los 36 países de la región, tuvimos que analizar información para 35 porque Bonaire solamente se calculan las paridades para lo que es consumo de los hogares, no se incluye el resto de las componentes del PIB. De los del total de países, solo obtuvimos información para la ronda 2017 de 25 de ellos. 9 los tuvimos que estimar con información desde el año 2011 y 1 tuvimos que imputarlo con información proveniente de diferentes países. Ahora, esta información que los países entregaron, su cobertura tampoco reflejaba el 100%. Aquí les muestro que solamente 8 países de la región entregaron una cobertura mayor a un 60% de la información. Y si esa cobertura las analizamos al interior de cada una de los componentes, en algunos casos ella baja. Entonces, esta cobertura que yo le estoy presentando es previo a la validación. Esto es lo que los países entregaron, que no necesariamente fue lo que quedó al final para el cálculo de los resultados. Entonces, esa fue nuestra panorámica con la que nosotros contamos para hacer la estimación de la parte construcción en la ronda 2017. ¿Cuáles fueron los principales retos que tuvimos que enfrentar particularmente para este tipo de información? Fue la lentitud en la entrega de la información. Y ahí tuvimos que realizar más reuniones para poder ver de qué manera apoyábamos a los países, para poder tener algún tipo de información proveniente de su comercio para hacer estas estimaciones. Otro elemento que también tuvimos es que a partir de la información que nos proporcionaba había muchas inconsistencias de la información. Ahí podemos hablar de inconsistencias, de lo que presentaba Aarón, del tema de que muchos de los, por ejemplo, la parte de los porcentajes no cuadraban, pero también había inconsistencias con las conversiones a unidades de medida, lo que planteaba Eduardo. En algunos casos, algunos países, estas conversiones venían distorsionadas, por lo tanto había que volver a revisar, había que volver a pedir la información para poder hacer bien este tipo de conversión de la información. Durante este proceso, dadas las inconsistencias, dada la lentitud y la falta de información, y en estas reuniones que realizamos con los países, particularmente se convocaba a los países en los cuales teníamos deficiencia en cobertura e información, empezamos a analizar fuentes alternativas para poder completar estas datos. Y ahí lo que planteaba Marisa respecto de la información de los IPC es totalmente cierta. La información de los IPC tiene una valoración distinta de la que tenemos acá. Sin embargo, muchos de los productos que aparecen en los IPC de los países, particularmente los países del Caribe, tienen relación con los productos que se están solicitando en la encuesta de construcción. Y ahí conversábamos con algunos colegas la posibilidad de que esos productos se consultara en los tipos de establecimientos si tenían o no la posibilidad de venderlos por mayor, para poder de esa manera obtener algún tipo de información. Por eso en la diapositiva colocamos IPC con ajustes, porque en realidad no podemos tomar inmediatamente el precio del IPC, porque la valoración para el consumo del hogar y para esta encuesta de construcción es distinta, por lo tanto, pero sí en algunos países del Caribe los colegas comentaban que dado que no hay mucha oferta de este tipo de productos, hay establecimientos que ofrecen este producto como al por menor y también al por mayor. Otros países de la región, como lo ha precisado Lisbeth y como lo precisa también Neymar, tienen índices de construcción, por lo tanto solicitábamos a los países hacer primero el match para poder ver qué productos que están en la lista se relacionan con la información que se está recolectando en el país para este tipo de índice, y de esa manera poder completar la información de construcción. Ahí recuerdo el caso específico de Paraguay, en el cual la información que utilizamos para la ronda 2017 provino básicamente de ese índice. Para aquellos países que no pudimos obtener con estas fuentes alternativas, tuvimos que recurrir a la información que teníamos para el año 2011 y llevarla a precios del año 2017. Y finalmente, para aquellos casos en los cuales no obtuvimos información por ninguna de las alternativas presentadas anteriormente, tuvimos que hacer una estimación de gap filling. Respecto de la información de apoyo, también teníamos esta falta de información por parte de los países, por lo tanto ahí también nosotros empezamos a recurrir a los colegas de cuentas nacionales y les pedíamos que si nos podían compartir algún tipo de estructura para poder abrir este tipo de información. Si no teníamos esa información, la otra opción era recurrir a lo que habíamos tenido en la parte de la ronda 2011, en la cual teníamos un poco más de información y tratar de utilizar ese tipo de datos. Y si no teníamos ninguna de las dos anteriores, recurrimos a la propuesta que hizo el Banco Mundial respecto de estas aperturas o participaciones, tanto de la construcción residencial, no residencial y obras de ingeniería diferenciadas por tipo de ingreso. Sin embargo, ahí también hay que tener un elemento discriminador al respecto, es que el Banco Mundial separa estas participaciones por niveles de ingreso. Sin embargo, muchos de los países del Caribe caen con un nivel de ingreso superior o alto. Sin embargo, las estructuras que ahí se presentan no reflejan necesariamente el quehacer de estos países. Por lo tanto, ahí tuvimos que ir revisando y chequeando para ver qué tipo de estructura era la que correspondía mejor a cada uno de los países de los cuales no disponíamos de este tipo de información. Respecto de la información de alquiler de equipo y mano de obra, nosotros no disponíamos de mayor información, por lo tanto, si el país no nos proveyó de este tipo de datos, tuvimos que recurrir a la información del año 2011 y el resto se obtuvo a través del gap filling. Y finalmente, respecto de la relevancia, si el país no entregaba ese tipo de información, nosotros utilizamos la propuesta que hacía el Banco Mundial respecto de esta información. Basado en este tipo de situación que tuvimos que enfrentar en la ronda pasada, de esta manera se conformó el proceso por el cual nosotros elaboramos la base de datos que posteriormente permitió hacer las estimaciones de las paridades de poder adquisitivo. Lo diferencié en dos áreas respecto de los productos que están con cierta especificación y la información de apoyo. En el ámbito de la información o de los productos con algún tipo de especificación, vimos si el país tenía información en el año 2017 y al validarla teníamos una buena cobertura, pasaba a la base de datos. Si no tenía una buena cobertura, la teníamos que dejar en espera para poder hacer el tema del gut feel. Si no teníamos información, recurrimos a los datos del año 2011, se actualizaron, se validaron en conjunto con el resto de la información, y si lográbamos una buena cobertura, podía ingresar a la base de datos, si no, teníamos que hacer gut feel. En el caso de la validación, lo que presentó Aarón, nosotros para la ronda 2017 utilizamos tanto la tabla o el mecanismo que utiliza Yuri como el de Sergey, dado que Sergey fue Sergeyev, que es el consultor del Banco Mundial, fue la persona que nos apoyó tanto en la ronda 2011 como en la ronda 2017, asesorándonos directamente en este tipo de validación y estimación de las paridades de poder adquisitivo. Por lo tanto, aquí en esta parte del gap filling, utilizamos los dos, tanto la propuesta que hace Sergey como la propuesta que hizo Yuri, y fuimos revisando cuál de ellas daba un mejor resultado para los países, porque los dos métodos difieren, por lo tanto, obviamente el resultado es distinto, y por eso con el gap filling tuvimos que ir evaluando cuál de los dos mecanismos entregaba un mejor valor, dependiendo del país y dependiendo del tipo de información que estábamos viendo. Si era materiales, si era mano de obra, o si era la parte del arriendo de los equipos. Acá, como les comenté, en el ámbito de la relevancia, si el país nos entregaba información, la utilizábamos la que entregó el país, y en caso de no disponer de esa información, utilizamos la propuesta del Banco Mundial. En el ámbito de la información de apoyo, básicamente las participaciones de los proyectos, ahí si el país entregó la información del año 2017 y los datos eran consistentes, utilizábamos esa información, y si no eran consistentes, teníamos que hacer la consulta a los colegas de cuentas nacionales. Y de los colegas de cuentas nacionales obteníamos estos factores para el año 2017, veíamos la consistencia y pasaba a la base de datos. Si no, tuvimos que utilizar lo que existía en el año 2011, las estructuras que utilizamos para el año 2011 para cada uno de los países, y si no, utilizamos la información que propuso el Banco Mundial teniendo presente el tema de los niveles de ingreso de cada uno de los países, particularmente teniendo cuidado en los países del Caribe, en donde no teníamos ese tipo de información. Este fue el proceso que se siguió para poder armar la base de datos, y con esta base de datos se continuó el proceso de estimación de las paridades de poder adquisitivo para la parte residencial, no residencial y las obras de ingeniería. Esa era la experiencia que tuvimos y cómo enfrentamos en la ronda 2017 lo que fue la revisión de la información para poder hacer las estimaciones de las paridades. Muchas gracias.
Perdón, estaba sin micrófono. Muchas gracias, María Paz. Ciertamente es un tema muy complejo y digamos, la experiencia en la ronda 2017 así lo refleja. Creo que para la ronda 2021 tenemos desafíos adicionales, porque todo el tema del impacto del COVID en la disponibilidad y en los precios de los materiales y los productos, como también los confinamientos, van a ser muy difícil poder utilizar información de rondas anteriores como se hizo en la ronda 2017 en el tema de esta encuesta. También el tema del IPC y los ajustes también en base a lo que nos comentaba el colega de Ecuador. Aquí poner el foco en la información de las constructoras, de los contratistas, que tienen más que ver con la formación bruta de capital fijo y no tanto con el consumo de los hogares como es el IPC. Así es que tenemos muchos desafíos para este 2021, para este ciclo 2021, y creo que va a ser muy importante que los países que tengan dudas, consultas, nos las hagan llegar y nosotros poderles dar una respuesta consensuada con el equipo y con el Banco Mundial. Sin más, quisiera ir a la sesión 5 y final, donde tendremos las conclusiones y los próximos pasos. Y por último, pedirles al final de todo, pero lo haré en su momento, que abramos nuestras cámaras y podamos hacer una foto de todo el grupo. Así es que les dejo la palabra a Ana Victoria Vega, de la División de Estadísticas, nuestra jefa de la Unidad de Estadísticas Económicas, y quien se referirá a esta parte final de las conclusiones y los próximos pasos. Adelante, Vicky.
Gracias, buenos días a todos. Gracias, Claudia. Voy a compartir una lámina que tengo para estas conclusiones. Me confirman, por favor, si la ven.
La vemos.
Listo. Está un segundo. Ok, ahora sí. Bueno, básicamente en el tema de las conclusiones y los próximos pasos, quiero mencionar el completo recorrido que tuvimos durante estos 2 medios días de trabajo a lo largo de las sesiones que se presentaron durante la reunión técnica dedicada específicamente a la construcción. Entonces, pasamos por la estructura pasamos primero a ver la estructura del Producto Interno Bruto, cómo aporta este sector al PIB, a su crecimiento, y cómo aporta específicamente en el tema del cálculo de la formación bruta de capital fijo. Luego vimos también una actualización de cómo se obtienen y cómo se calculan las PPAs para las cuales estamos recogiendo la información específica en este tema también. Posteriormente entramos al formulario y directamente a la recolección de los datos, a la lista de los productos, a ver esas directrices generales de cómo levantar esta información específica. Aquí también voy a agradecer específicamente a Aarón, donde ya entramos a ver el detalle específico, la precisión, la claridad de las especificaciones y los ejemplos aportados que sin duda van a ayudar y contribuirán al proceso de recolección de datos en esta ronda 2021. Finalmente, el diálogo que se tuvo también con todos los participantes, con los expertos de los países, con todos ustedes, básicamente, las respuestas, los comentarios que contribuyeron a dejarnos aprendizajes y también tareas para que ya una vez cuando entremos al proceso de recolección, los países puedan retomar estos comentarios, estas preguntas y aportes tanto del consultor como de los otros países y los puedan traer a su realidad y en el proceso de levantamiento de la información. Las lecciones y los retos que se tuvieron en el 2017, en la última presentación que hizo nuestra colega María Paz, en base a esto quisimos poner los siguientes puntos relevantes para concluir esta sesión de trabajo. La importancia de la compilación de esta encuesta en términos del PIB y en términos de la formación bruta de capital. La complejidad del tema y atención a todas las especificaciones de la encuesta, los materiales operacionales, las fuentes de información utilizadas y sin duda el detalle y la precisión, que en este caso son muy, muy relevantes. Recordar los ejemplos que nos puso el consultor para llegar al detalle preciso en la recolección y el levantamiento de los precios. Otro punto importante es el impacto del COVID. Sin duda, los resultados de la ronda 2021, como lo ha explicado también Claudia y nuestros colegas del Banco Mundial, no vamos a tener un punto de comparación porque los datos que estamos recogiendo hoy para la ronda 2021 tienen ese componente post-COVID. Dentro de los pasos a seguir, ¿cuándo hacer el levantamiento de la encuesta de construcción? Entonces, en el calendario está propuesto para el cuarto trimestre del 2021 la encuesta de construcción y obras civiles y para el primer trimestre del 2022 la encuesta de maquinaria y equipo. También recordarles que todas las dudas y las consultas y los problemas que se den en este proceso más que problemas, los desafíos que tengamos en este proceso de recolección, por favor los canalicemos a través del punto focal que cada uno de los países tiene. Dentro del equipo de la división cada uno de los colegas tiene a su cargo un número específico de países con los cuales ustedes con el cual ustedes se han estado comunicando. Entonces, por favor, canalicemos ahí todas las consultas, los comentarios, las dudas y nosotros las enfocaremos al consultor. Y les daremos respuesta, por supuesto. Todas las presentaciones y la grabación de este taller estarán también disponibles en el sitio web de la CEPAL, que sin duda también contribuirán a que se vuelvan a leer, se vuelvan a escuchar cuando estemos ya en ese proceso de levantamiento de la información. Finalmente, solo agradecer el apoyo y la colaboración también de los colegas del Banco Mundial, Ha sido un trabajo muy arduo. Felicitar también a Aarón, a todo el equipo, que realmente fue una reunión muy constructiva y nos deja muchos retos y muchas tareas también, pero sin duda aportarán a que el proceso de levantamiento de datos para el cuarto trimestre, que es cuando vamos a hacer el proceso en construcción, tenga los mejores resultados. Muchas gracias, Claudia, y muchas gracias a todos por su participación.
Bueno, gracias a ti, Vicky, por estas conclusiones, por todos estos temas que tú resaltaste, y también me uno a los agradecimientos a Aarón, por sus tremendas contribuciones en este tema tan complejo, también a los colegas del Banco Mundial por su apoyo, también a los colegas de CARICOM que estuvieron aquí también con nosotros, agradecerles también a todos los países, los puntos focales que han participado hoy día, agradecerle al equipo por su trabajo, por su apoyo técnico en todo este tema, agradecerle también a los intérpretes. Realmente yo estuve escuchando en todos los idiomas y han sido un soporte muy importante para el buen desarrollo de esta reunión. A los colegas de SIC que siempre nos apoyan y que están ahí al pendiente de solucionar todo lo que necesitamos para poder llevar adelante esta reunión. Y antes de despedirnos, 2 minutos para que abran todas sus cámaras y hacer una foto. Por favor, si pueden abrir todas sus cámaras. Ahí, y si podemos hacer una foto grupal. Muchas gracias a todos. Nos despedimos con esta imagen de todos en cámara. Y bueno, seguimos adelante con todos los requerimientos que tenemos. Aarón, seguiremos en contacto para las consultas que los países puedan tener. Y bueno, los colegas del Banco Mundial siempre, CARICOM también, y con todos los puntos focales estaremos al pendiente de todo lo que se requiera para poder tener un muy buen resultado en este ciclo 2021. Así es que muchas gracias a todos, estuvimos perfecto con la hora, 12:30, así es que English time, así es que muchas gracias y nos vemos. Chao.